Okay, and welcome to your second theory lesson. This one we're going to talk about rests. So rests are all about the time when we don't play. So the notes we looked at in the last lesson, those are the notes that we play or sing. Rests cover the time that we don't play or sing anything. So when you're a kid and you do those clapping exercises and you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all of that stuff, that's kind of trying to explain how rests work and rhythm. It's just when you don't play anything. Cool. So all time needs to be accounted for in music so that it all adds up and makes sense. So just before we get started, the other thing we're going to look at is this. This is called a stave. Okay, a set of 5 lines is basically the format that we write music onto. Okay, so each one of these lines and gaps indicates a different pitch, which we'll look at further down the track. Generally, you'll get 2 written together like this, or more, depending on how many different parts you have. Generally, you'll have a treble clef and a bass clef. Okay, we're going to look at the clefs, what they look like and that sort of thing a bit later on. We just want the stave at the moment so we can see where we're going to draw these rests. So there's also time signatures and key signatures that go onto this, but that's all further down the track. Okay, these 2 sets of staves should actually be the same size just because I've roughly drawn it. This one's bigger, but normally they're the same size. If you've got a whole bunch of different parts, e.g. an orchestra, you'll see a whole lot of these all in a line that go down with all the individual parts, and there'll be all sorts of different clefs for different instruments and yada 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 yada. But we're not getting that technical yet, right? Cool, so I'm just going to hold this up here so we can see it. Okay, so our first rest, if we take this, there's this middle line running through here, and in the gap above it, on the bottom of the next line up, which is the second line down, I want to draw this little block. Okay, so it's sitting on the bottom of the line. So when this is drawn in our other picture where we split everything, it's drawn like that to indicate that it goes under the line. Kind of looks like a hat upside down, right? So the way I like to remember this is it's kind of like I'm having a rest and I've got some time, so I've got time to take my hat off and sit down. Cool? Nice and simple. Okay, so that is a semi-brief rest. Okay? Or a whole note rest. So the names and values are going to stay the same through our picture as the last set we did. Okay, the next one we're going to do is going to be in the same gap, but this time it's going to go on top of the middle line. Okay, so we split that in half. And now we get a hat, but it's up the right way. I like to think of that as I've got time for a rest, but I don't have time to take my hat off and sit down. Cool? Okay, so it's just the easy way to remember which way around these goes, which one is the semi-brief rest and which one is the minim rest or the half note. Okay, the next one we're going to change the picture completely, and we are going to do our next one, sorry, is our ZC. So we're going to do kind of like that. So yeah, that's kind of, again, that's freehanding it. It'll be a bit tidier than that, but it's kind of like a Z with a C stuck to the bottom of it. Okay, so that's this split again, kind of think like you got time to take a short nap, okay? A very short nap, because you don't have time to take your hat off still, but you can have a short nap. Okay, and that's just to remember that it comes before the other picture, which is kind of like a little ball with a stick, kind of like a little 7. So that one I think doesn't come all the way to the bottom. That just goes to that second line up. Getting a little bit technical and like, you know, where to draw them on the stave and that sort of thing. So we split that one again. So sorry, that one is a crotchet or quarter note. And then we get down to this one. Down there so you can see it. Which is kind of like a 7 with the ball on the end. So that one is a quaver or 8th note. So you can see I'm only splitting them once because we got the idea from the last picture how we split them all. Okay, and then after that we're going to do the same thing, but now it's going to have 2 tails. On each line, like that. Okay, so remember with our with our notes, we just added a tail each time we split it, and now we're kind of into the same thing. So that's a semi-quaver, just write semi 16th, okay, split that again and you get one with 3. Try and get all the way down there. 3, that becomes our demi-semi quaver. My writing's getting wonkier and wonkier as I get further down the board. I'm gonna have to move again. Okay, and then we split that again right at the bottom of our board. And we of course get our 4 tails now, which is our hemi, semi, demi quaver. Okay, so demi semi is our 32nd, and hemi semi demi being our 64th. So they're the same values as what the notes are, they're just rests instead of notes, so they're unplayed rather than played. Cool, so if we bring that back up here, then when we do the 3, we go 1, 2, 3, and then when we do the 4, go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's kind of like one on each line type of thing. Cool. So those are the basic rests, and they're generally what's covered in grade 1, except again, you don't generally come down into these demi, semis, and hemi, demi, semi. Sorry, I wrote that backwards, didn't I? Hemi, demi, semi. You don't generally come down into those. And the other thing you don't do is the next thing we're going to do, which we're actually going to come back this way a little bit. And what we are going to do is this one here. Okay, This is called a breve. Its value is 2 whole notes. Okay, so notice that's called a semi-breve, meaning that it's only part of something. What it's a part of is a breve, okay, a full breve, which is worth twice as much as this. Okay, and then you have a long note, a long rest. That one is actually only that one. This one here. So that one's just in the top bar, the breve. This one here is our long rest. Okay, and that is worth twice as much as this. That is worth twice as much as this. Go the right way around. It's the trouble when I'm looking at the screen and everything's backwards. Okay, so that is worth 4 times a semi-breve. Okay, so again that's a little bit more complicated, but it's handy just to cover it while we're looking at rests. So then there's actually another one, just to get them all out of the way, which is 2 of those. So twice as much again. And that's got a bunch of different names. The simplest one is just large. Okay, but if you see 2 of them together, it's just twice as much as that. Nice and simple. Okay, so now that we've started getting into this, going backwards a bit and adding to them, if we look again at our notes, and we look at a semi-breve, because you might have got the idea that if a semi-breve rest is only part of something bigger, then it's the same for our semi-breve note. Okay, and if we see a couple of bars on each end of that note, okay, so it looks like that. That is a breve. Okay, which again is just a worth twice as much as a semi-breve. Okay, and then you get into notes that you probably next to never see, where you have like a bar, and then you kind of have 2 bars and a straight thing down like that. Okay, so that becomes our long note. And then further back this way, you have one of those that's kind of the same, but it's longer. And that becomes our large. So twice as much, twice as much. Okay, so you never really see these 2 in music, and that's because of the use of ties and that sort of thing. Generally, people would just tie either 2 breves together or 2 semi-breves or something like that, generally. But just so that you know, so you've got that reference, again, draw all this stuff out, write it down, write it nice and neat, not like me. It's kind of awkward on a whiteboard, but if you write this all out in your book, then you've got that reference to come back to. So again, these sorts of things down this end, not covered in grade 1, but it's good just to cover them while we're doing it. Cool. But don't let that overcomplicate this basic stuff down here. Okay, so when we look at this picture, everything from our semi-breve down, that's the stuff that we really want to focus on. Awesome.